Good morning. I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee and wanted to record what's going on in my head. So, this is purely fictional. It is purely out of the imagination. It's not real. Places or people, it's not real, okay? So, we'll start, because you have to be careful with what you say nowadays. So, once upon a time, in a total different era, there was this group of nations that was constantly in combat. Peace was not an option. They were fighting for supremacy. Who's going to be the big fish in the pond? So they fought until the strongest remained. Everybody else was out of money, out of soldiers, out of ammunition, out of everything. So the last one standing then said, I declare myself as the winner. And everybody else was like, yeah, sure, we don't really have the ways of fighting back anymore. So, yeah, you're the winner. The winner then called them all to the table and set a bunch of rules. Let's call them international rules. It had this and that and the other, pretty much saying, I am the biggest fish in the pond. This is the international rule that you guys will respect with between each other, but rules for thee but not for me, because since I am the winner and the one who remains with the biggest army and the biggest guns, I call the shots. So these rules are for thee, not for me. Whenever you guys go out of line again, I will punish you with sanctions, with whatever. Do you understand? And everybody was like, yeah, sure, we don't really have a choice but to accept. So, for at least 100 years, peace was then a common thing. The conflict stopped. Of course, there was micro things here and there. There's always tyrants trying to rise into power and starting their own utopia. But they were minor things. It wasn't a world scale thing. So, fast forward 100 years, you know, there's nothing more despicable. Well, there's maybe a couple of things that are more despicable, but one of the most despicable things is biting the hand that feeds you. It just doesn't make any sense. It's one of the biggest forms of, disrespect. Because since, those days, there's lots of nations that have been profiting from the protection of this big fish in the pond. They've been, economically, socially, etc., profiting from it, that they even, dissipated all their armies and whatever. They just focused on industry, capitalism, and they got pretty wealthy. The biggest and most wealthy nations in the world. But when there's so much, you know, comfort, when there's so much harmony, there will always be those who seek struggle, they seek discomfort. Why do they seek that? There's something that is not harmonious about them. I'm not saying they have some sort of disease and they have to be locked up. No, I'm not a doctor. And even if I was, I would be very careful to diagnose these types, because that's diagnosing the other. It's one of the tactics of the tyrannical regimes. diagnosing them and locking them up. That's their tactic. They will do it to you. So be very careful with the institutions. If they hijack the institutions, they can, rewrite what's normal and what's not. So I would say they have some sort of thing, some sort of sadomasochistic, thing that just doesn't let them be harmonious with the world, with people. They are almost possessed by a demon that seeks chaos. You know, sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's right in your face. You know, they just seek disharmony. So, anyway, these individuals then don't seem to understand the natural order of things. They don't seem to understand the what is conflict, what is WAR. They don't seem to understand those things. At all. They don't seem to understand force, and they don't seem to understand that high velocity lead is the ultimate form of currency. Yes, high velocity lead. It's not gold, it's not silver, it's not money, it's not currency or digital currency or whatever, or raw materials, timber, oil, food. It's not, that's not the highest form of currency. No, the highest form of currency is high velocity lead. And those who own the biggest velocity lead are the ones who set the rules. They don't seem to understand that. And lately they've been biting the hand that protects them, creating disorder, disharmony. So whenever the biggest fish in the pond decides that's enough, we're going to set some order, they start crying out loud. Oh, the tyrants, look at them. Look at what they're doing again. The tyrants. Yeah. This will be the first to hide if conflict, just spreads again, because they have no spine. They have no clue what they're doing. They cry out loud that they are the most virtuous. Look at what they're doing. Oh, crying victim and shaming and pointing the finger. Playing your emotional strings. And there's a lot of people that go with it. They don't understand the natural order. They don't seem to get it. So you have a group of people that is working day and night to keep the world in peace. And then there's these idiots, by the nature of their own ignorance, are seeding WHR. Yeah, they are. It's a thing that you see it in the minds of the stupid. You start seeding it little by little. Anyway, yeah, there used to be in this fictional imaginary world in an era a long, long time ago, there used to be one big fish in this pond, but it kind of became fragmented into two, east and west. Why? Inner fighting. Yes, the inner fighting, because the big fish in the pond became very, how should I put it, focused or distracted fighting inner battles, because this disease also affects the biggest fish. It's not just the others that was enjoying their protection. It's also an inner fight. They eventually, by the nature of their own system, elected idiots that seeded the discourse, that seeded um, what's the expression? Oh man, I can't remember. When you see these people with plenty of piercings, and their hair is different colors, and you see them yelling, that's the result. They seeded um, confusion. Yeah, I think that they seeded confusion into the minds of the weak, and they use them as foot soldiers. You know, they use them as foot soldiers. Of course, once if they achieve power, they will lock up all those foot soldiers because they are problematic. I mean, there's all sorts of names you can give them. I don't want to say, but they all have something in common: disharmony. They are the types that think that whenever they throw trash to the floor, they think they are polluting nature and thinking of themselves as being something separate from nature. You're like, no, man. If you throw trash to the floor, you are harming yourself. You're not harming nature, you're harming yourself. You see? Because you are one with nature. If you do something that pollutes something, you're gonna be polluted too. I mean, it's just common sense, right? Another thing that seems to escape them is whenever they spray their food, their greens, whenever they spray them with chemicals to get rid of pests, insects, land, animals, birds, those chemicals, they repel everything. They are the types who then turn around and eat those. They are the only species in the world that does such a thing. They turn around and eat those greens and those vegetables and whatever was used to repel everything else is going to be consumed by them, you know because their organism is a lot bigger. They won't feel the side effects immediately. Some do actually, but depending on the levels of threshold, depending on the levels of toxicity that you've been exposed already, but it will sooner or later manifest. It's the same principle. Whenever if you throw trash, if you spray, it's gonna harm you. It's not harming nature. You know. The other day I was walking the dog, and there was these two waiting for the bus having the most intellectual discussion about the climate. And I was like, okay, I'll pretend I didn't hear anything. I'll just say good morning and just move along. They were like, yeah, it's a fact. Look at the weather. It's a fact. This thing is changing. And I'm like, yeah, it changes. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's hot. You know, to them is a realization that it changes. Wow. The little demons was able to plant eggs in their little brains. Now those eggs hatch. They are like, oh, look, it changes. Right. Anyway, a farmer in this hypothetical world, a farmer actually has more wisdom than any PhD. Yep, than any so-called educated people. So The world was divided into West and East by the nature of their own system, the inner fighting, the greedy corporations. Yeah, you just can't end the election of weak leaders, eventually destroyed from the inside and divided the world into two. Now you have East and West. And you know what? The East is winning. Yeah, the East is winning. I don't think the East is concerned or worried about conflict. I think they are wiser. They don't want to involve, in a conflict again. No, they just want to be the biggest fish in the pond. And that will be a difficult thing to swallow, the West, because they've been in the past 100 years in charge of everything, and suddenly they are losing power. So we'll see how it goes. You know, empires go up and down. They eventually go down by the nature, by the own, innate ignorance of people and evilness of some people. There's no utopias. That there can't be. You know, utopia is an ideology. It sounds good. It's good to plant demon seeds in people's minds, but in reality, it's just not applicable. You know, most people are not seeking peace, are not seeking harmony. There's only a handful of people that seek peace and harmony. 99%, they just love the roller coaster of ups and downs, ups and downs. Yeah. So, so anyway, I think I'm going to shut up now. Have a nice day.